And a very good Monday afternoon to you from the University of Arizona's campus, Camp Student Radio, 5:08 local time. Arizona men's basketball up to number 2 in the AP poll. We're not going to spend too much time on that, previewing their matchup against Denver, because let's face it, we have a pretty good opinion on how that one's going to go, so not too much deliberation. I think we touched on what we needed to on Friday in the aftermath of the victory against UConn, but we do want to update you on their rank, which Michael is now number 2 in the country behind just Purdue, and Purdue has a pretty good resume as well. So maybe not unjust in that regard. I tend to think 3 ranked wins, especially when you beat the last 3 defending champions, that probably have a pretty strong case to make to be number 1. But nonetheless, the basketball team is number 2 in the country, not a bad place to be. And another team that's in a pretty good spot, the Arizona Wildcats football team, which is where we will start on this Monday afternoon. Winners of 4 straight, Michael, including a decisive victory over Baylor. Now, it wasn't always a decisive victory. Through 2.5 quarters, it was very much a game that was up in the air. And certainly the 6.5 points did not look like it was going to be covered. It didn't look like a great play until it was. I mean, let's be honest. That game turned on a dime, and it seemed like the big turning point was Salgado Medina does miss the field goal, and then Baylor gives the ball right back up. There's a fumble. Then Mahdi takes it 28 yards to the house. So you have kind of a 3-play sequence where Baylor gets new life, they give it up, and then Arizona kind of sticks the sword right in the chest. And that was that. What did you think from the Arizona football team? Michael Smith joining us, just David and Michael today on the rundown. What did you think of the victory over Baylor, and how do you kind of assess their chances moving forward against ASU?
Well, I think the defense really came to fruition, especially in that second half. Baylor didn't score a single point, and I don't think they ever got in field goal range in that second half. Rough first half, right? Because we talked about it at halftime when we're calling the game, David, and you know, for most of the season, it's like, all right, Arizona struggled on offense in the first half, but they flip it in the second half. Well, this game kind of had that opposite feeling of, well, the defense was kind of struggling a little bit. The offense did its thing. It scored on, I believe, almost every drive they had. And I really still can't wrap my mind around it of how on earth did that third and fourth quarter sequence kind of happen. 3 touchdowns, David, in just a little more than 4 minutes. It's quite unbelievable. I'm looking down at the roster sheet to go back on the previous play of the scoop and score, or the scoop and score, and all I hear next to me in my ear is David yelling pick 6. And I'm like, oh my God. I don't know how it happens. I still can't wrap my mind around it. But I think going forward, you have to love what you're seeing on both sides of the ball. And look, we said it all game. Chris Hudson, career high in targets, 14 targets for tying his career high, 9 receptions.
Right.
And I believe the most receiving yards in his career of 133. Fafita loves the number 4 receiver. You could say that. And you'd love to see this more against ASU this Friday. I think one thing for sure, though, is the ground game, right? No Quincy Craig, but that's no problem at all.
Is he out? He's definitely out against Arizona State, or he was just out last week?
He was just out last week, but okay. I'm just saying no problem at all, right? You split the carries in the backfield, 14 to Mahdi, 13 to Riscano.
Yep. And
Fafita, you know, I mentioned it earlier, like during the game of let's see him use his legs more. He had 33 rushing yards. Kind of want to see that more against ASU. Keep them on their toes, right? Don't give them too much of a tell. Mix it up here and there. So I'm really liking how this team is looking. And I'm very interested to see the press conferences tomorrow between both coordinators and Gonzalez and Deggy to see what their takeaways was and what their plan is for ASU on Friday.
So for those who missed the game, a very quick recap here. Arizona took a 3-point deficit. That's right. They trailed at the half. 17-14. I was a little bit critical of how the half ended because it was 14-14 with very little time to go. All Arizona had to do was tackle a Baylor player in the field of play in the final seconds of the second quarter. They were unable to do so. He scampered out of bounds, which allowed the Bears to knock in about a 49-yard field goal, I think it was, with 2 seconds left. So again, if he was just tackled in the field of play, that attempt never would have happened. But nonetheless, Baylor got kind of a fortunate 3 points there. Arizona has a beautiful drive to start the second half. They go right down the field, 75 yards in 8 plays to take a 21-17 lead. And then, Michael, it looked like that missed field goal, like I said, by Salgado Medina in the fourth quarter was going to be costly. And I'm starting to think, as I tend to do, Okay, they let Baylor have 3 points at the end of the half. They're leaving 3 points on the table right here. That's 6 points. Let's see if that makes a difference, right? That was where I was at that point in the game. And Arizona's offense in the third quarter, like I said, they went down the field to start the half, but then they hadn't done anything. They had, I think, 2 or 3 drives in a row where it stalled out pretty quickly.
3 and outs, both
right.
3 and outs.
Yeah, 2 3 and outs in a row. So you're thinking, okay, this is not over. Baylor has a fumble. Arizona scores on the next play. And then you have a turnover on downs. Arizona scores a few plays after that. And then you have a pick 6, I think, the next play after that. So Arizona scored 3 touchdowns in about 2 minutes of game clock. It was really a remarkable thing. Now, as a Jet fan, Michael, you're going to say, oh, boy, everything comes back to the Jets. But no, I just want to say this right now. Some may recall a game when Mark Sanchez ran into the backside of one of his offensive linemen. I think you know what I'm talking about, Michael. It's known commonly as the butt fumble.
Yeah, of course.
So the final score of that game, it was a Thanksgiving night game. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, but also with what happened on Saturday at at formerly known as Arizona Stadium, Casino del Sol Stadium, what happened there reminded me of that Thanksgiving game, not just because of the butt fumble, Michael. Let me just tell you about this sequence real quick, okay? Tell me if this sounds like what we saw in Tucson on Saturday. New England scores a touchdown on one play, right? And then you have the Jets fumble. New England scores a touchdown on another play. Okay, that's 14 right there. You have the Jets, obviously the butt fumble. That's 21 points now in 3 plays.
Yeah.
Okay? And then the Patriots would go on to score later again on another drive. So the Patriots basically, in that game, the butt fumble game, they had 21 points in 3 plays. There was a fumbled kickoff. There was a fumble by Mark Sanchez. And then there were 2 one-play drives basically that were touchdowns. So he scored 28 points like that. And it did remind me, I mean, that game was an iconic disaster. But if this game was on the same stage, right, that was the night game on Thanksgiving, I think it might have gotten the same kind of attention because that was a complete implosion by Baylor, something you don't see very often in just a blink of an eye.
Right.
I mean, it went from 21-17 to 41-17 in just a few minutes. So really remarkable. Nice to see Arizona on the other side of that because certainly – they've had some frustrating losses this season, and I think a lot of people encouraged to see them kind of on the positive side of a team that was snake bitten in Baylor.
What a great callback from David there with the butt fumble. What was that? 14
well,
years ago?
Well, it was 13 years, and we're in the spirit of Thanksgiving, first of all. But as I was watching the game, I said, "Geez, this reminds me of something," and that's what it was. It was a Jet Patriot game. So it's not often, Michael, you see a game where a team scores 28 points in 6 plays or in a couple of minutes, and those are the only 2 games that come to mind for me. And Thanksgiving coming up in just a few days. By the way, I do want to, and we're gonna spend so much time on the NFL. You are not prepared for how much time we are about to dedicate to the NFL. And here's an interesting question. I don't know how you feel about this. It's a Monday. I understand that, but, and I think the answer is probably no. But I'm willing to see what you think, Michael. We're not gonna have a show on Friday,
right?
Do we think about making picks today?
Wow.
What do you think?
I mean, I haven't really looked at anything, but we could.
We'll think about it. I'll look back at you in about 20 minutes, and we'll see where you are. But I think maybe what we'll do, Michael, is we can kind of say where we think we may go.
Okay.
But not go too much into it
because
but we won't have a show on Friday.
Yeah.
So I think if somebody wants to make a pick or 2, I think that's allowed. Okay. And of course we're gonna have the pick segment recap coming up in about 20 minutes. We're also gonna scan the landscape of the National Football League, but we want to wrap up this college recap, and certainly Arizona. They've got a big game, arguably the biggest in quite some time, at least going back to the Jed Fish years. The Territorial Cup up in Tempe. Michael, take us through what we should expect from Arizona State. They have the same record as the Wildcats, but they have a better Big 12 record because Arizona State has that loss on the road against Mississippi State. What kind of team is Arizona going to be facing, and who do you think has the edge?
I think it's honestly a pick-em when you really think about it. I mean, Arizona doesn't have their star-studded quarterback in Sam Leavitt. He's out for the season after getting surgery. I believe it's his elbow, or is it an ankle injury? Nonetheless, look, I think Arizona has the advantage on the offensive end. However, Arizona State has arguably the best receiver, definitely in the conference, could be in the country, in Jordan Tyson. So I think it's very interesting, right? We talked about how good Arizona's secondary is. So I'm very interested to see how they plan on limiting or taking out Jordan Tyson from that game, because I think if Arizona can do that, I think it'll be a really smooth sailing. But again, Jordan Tyson is a first-round draft pick, so nothing comes easy. And then the ground game for Arizona State is Raleek Brown, the junior running back. He put up a monstrous game against Colorado, who, again, in my opinion, has a tackling problem.
To say the least.
Yes. 22 carries, 255 yards, David, averaging 11.6 yards per carry, and a touchdown to go along with that. He's going to be tough to handle. He's no Cam Scatterbo. However, you can't underestimate ASU because this game, if I've watched this game my entire life, David, and I have a running joke with me and my dad, I think whoever is the underdog in this game actually comes out on top. So I would take all the numbers out of it. It is quite literally a pick'em minus.
So then how do we do that then? If the underdog is supposed to win and there isn't an underdog, it's kind of like, will the underdog please stand up? Right. I don't know who it is. Arizona and Arizona State seem to be so evenly matched this year. Now, I do have to push back a little bit. You have much more experience with the series than I do, but the last 2 years I've been paying attention. Arizona was a big underdog last year. They got smoked.
Yeah.
Arizona was a big favorite 2 years ago, and they smoked ASU. So at least in recent memory, the favorites, they've been decisive favorites. They have done well, but I'm sure going back there's been a little bit more chaos.
Yeah.
This year, really, really hard to unpack because the teams are so close. Now, here's my one concern. I've got one concern. Leavitt, a little bit more of a pocket passer. Sims, a true dual threat. He's going to try to beat you with his legs. That hasn't gone great for Arizona this year. They do really well against the pocket passers. We saw that with Baylor last week, right? They really caused a great level of difficulty for the Baylor offense. But you think about Houston, BYU, even Cincinnati and Sorsby to some extent, the running quarterbacks do pretty well against Arizona. Do you think Sims is going to be a problem for the Cats?
I don't think to that extent, only because, again, I think it's a little bit overreaction, but he kind of did struggle kind of getting out of the pocket against Colorado.
Yep.
And if that's saying something against Colorado, then I trust Danny Gonzalez and this defense to really confuse Sims. He's top 10 in turnovers since 2020. I think that's what he's really known for. And look, I think the only, really focus I'm going to be watching is that Arizona State offense versus the Arizona defense.
Michael, on November 1st, up in Ames, Iowa, Jeff Sims, a quarterback, mind you, had 29 carries for 228 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. So I think he can run. Now we'll see.
I think
if
that
he's feeling
his first
okay.
game? No.
That was not his first. That was the first game that he really got a big role in. He did play against Utah when they got crushed.
Okay.
He had 21 carries that game for 66 yards. But Michael, we're talking about they trusted him to run the ball 30 times against the Cyclones, and he had 228 yards on the ground. Now last week, you're absolutely right. Hit the nail on the head. Colorado clearly was strategizing to contain Sims. They did a really nice job in that regard. Probably the only thing that went well for the Buffaloes last Saturday. He had 8 carries for 12 yards, but his passing game is starting to come along. Now he was below 50% completion, 11 of 24, but those 11 completions went for 206 yards. So every completed pass was basically a 20-yard gain contained in the pocket, like you said. So interesting to see maybe teams are starting to figure out Sims a little bit, containing him better. But there is that explosive aspect to his game. We know Arizona struggled against Bachmeier, against Wegman, and against Sorsby. Sorsby, they did a much better job in the second half, but he still had, I would say, a pretty good game. Now, the one thing you have to give the Cats credit about, and I've been probably one of their tougher critics, and I'll put my hand up and say they're starting to prove me wrong a little bit. You sent me a statistic. I don't know if you have that on the ready, but you did send me some very positive thing about their secondary. Arizona's secondary is playing at a very high level this season, and I apologize for not always saying that. They're doing a really good job making things difficult for quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
And there's a couple names. Even Dalton Johnson. I think he had 19 tackles on Saturday.
18 tackles. That's the most since 2014.
Okay, so Dalton, thank you for having that. Dalton Johnson was remarkable. 2 other players that you got to give a lot of credit. I would think Traden Stukes is working his way towards being an NFL player next year. Do you agree with that? Genesis Smith is playing really well. Even Aiden Garnes, I think, has been a nice spot in the nickel area. But Genesis Smith and Stukes certainly deserve a lot of praise. Arizona, again, and Robertson is a real passer. I mean, he can throw the ball. Pocket passer for Baylor, and he went right down the field in the first quarter.
No,
Arizona's defense made the necessary adjustments, and the secondary really played well in the second half. Go ahead.
Well, we talked about during the game, right? Robertson, I think in the first half and a little bit in the third quarter, we've never seen him use his legs this much.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's because he was so frustrated with the air attack.
Yeah, exactly. So you force him to become uncomfortable, right? And then you make an in-game adjustment.
Right.
you don't see him get outside the pocket, and he finished with the game with minus 10 yards on the ground. Going with the secondary, your passing attack, passing defense for Arizona. Sawyer Robertson entered Saturday's game as statistically the top passer in college football, and he's now fourth after he was held to 40 yards in the second half.
Yeah. No, it was really impressive. And Arizona's secondary, like I said, there's a couple of guys that have really been making it happen, and they certainly deserve credit for that. Now, can they do it against ASU? I think that, again, the secondary hasn't – part of the problem is, and what I was saying is like, oh, great, you've got the secondary. It doesn't matter when you can't stop the run, and that was the case against BYU and Houston. It's nice to have a sports car, but if you don't have a driver's license, you're not really going to get much utility out of that. And that's kind of what it felt like for me. Oh, you've got this beautiful Ferrari. Unfortunately, you're 12 years old and you can't drive it because their rush defense just didn't matter. But if they can do a better job against the run, which they did against Baylor, then yes, that secondary, certainly they make it tough to pass. And we are in a passing era right now in football in general. So having a good secondary, not something you have to apologize for. So lots of credit to the Arizona defense. Played a very good game against Baylor. That's all we can really say about that. Huge game coming up in Tempe. Do I think they're going to win? I have to say, Michael, I do. I really think that they will. Now, like I said, the main concern, the most obvious concern is you've got a quarterback who boasts a 200-yard rushing game this year. I don't care what he's done since.
Right.
If you've got a quarterback that at one time in his life rushed for 200 yards in a game, that's impressive, and you're going up against a team that hasn't really proved they can stop rushing quarterbacks. So I do think that will present a challenge. Let's also remember one thing about Arizona State. Now, I think Leavitt did play in this game, but having said that, they beat Texas Tech. Texas Tech right now is number 5 in the country. We'll see what happens when the CFP gets together tomorrow and they put out the ranking. But I'm not going to predict that they're going to go down. They haven't lost since the Arizona State game. Texas Tech is 10-1, top 5 team, and that one loss was Arizona State. So this is a team that can play. Now, it wasn't Sims at the time, but you have to give Arizona State credit.
Backup in there.
That's also true. Texas Tech, certainly they look like the team in the Big 12, and probably they're going to face BYU if BYU can hold on. Both BYU and Texas Tech are heavy favorites this week, so it seems like that will be the matchup in Arlington on December 6th. But nonetheless, ASU going to present a good challenge for the Cats. I just think they will be able to neutralize Sims enough, and I'm not sure I trust Arizona State's defense to cool off this explosive Arizona offense, and an offense that's playing as well as it has since 2023.
Absolutely, no. And I think with the confidence they're playing, right, coming into this game on a 4-game win streak, right, and ASU, kind of flirting back and forth. They're on a 3-game heater, but they did lose a tough one to Houston. And again, I think this offense completely, is miles above Arizona State's defense. So the question is, though, can Arizona actually prove that? Right? You can look at the stats, you can look on paper all you want, but what matters is when you get to Tempe on Friday night and Fafita is now hesitant to throw to Chris Hudson, hesitant to throw to Chris Hunter, hesitant to throw to Trey Spivey, right? Yeah. Or dump the ball off to any of his 2-3 running backs. I think that's all that matters. The thing is, with ASU, they're obviously going to make a lot of adjustments for this game. They're obviously going to take out at least one of Arizona's strengths, whether that's on the ground or with the amount of targets Hudson had. Oh, yeah. So look for someone else to step up in this game. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. I would love to see Fafita use his legs. Every time he does it, it pays off tremendously, and it completely just throws off the defense. And I think he uses it, David, his legs, in the most crucial times on like a 3rd and 8 or a 3rd and 7 when all the linebackers turn their backs towards the quarterback and he just takes off beyond the first down line.
Well, when you have even a thought in the back of your mind that a quarterback may keep it and that there is a chance he'll pick up the first down on the ground, it changes the way you approach defending the receivers, right? You don't necessarily commit to your spot as explicitly as you should, because in the back of your mind, well, even if I do my job here, there's a chance Noah's going to pick this one up on the ground. And that's the element of the game that he didn't have the first 2 years. That's certainly there this year. And not only does it help him, it helps the team when he picks up first downs, it helps the receivers create separation, because I think we saw a couple of times we weren't sure if Noah was going to get past the line of scrimmage or not. He wouldn't. He would get right up to it. the defenders would change their positioning, and then he'd throw the ball down the field. So that's an aspect. That's something that you see from Lamar Jackson and Mahomes, right? When defenders are kind of stuck to whether they are going to play the run or the pass. And anytime a defender is indecisive, that heavily favors the offense. Noah had 8 carries for 33 yards on Saturday. That's about where he's been this season. 8 carries seems to be the norm, and that's enough where you're going to think about it, right? I mean, you're talking about a good portion. The Net don't have much more than 8 drives a game, so that's almost 1 rush a drive. So it's certainly a factor there. Now, here's a really interesting note on Chris Hudson, Michael. Hudson had 9 catches. Only 1 receiver, Trey Spivey, had more than 1. He had 2. So it's pretty obvious keys to victory for Arizona State. The first thing is you're going to want to neutralize Chris Hudson.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest about that. He had 9 catches. You can combine the rest of the receivers, whether it's Richardson, Hunter, Mahdi coming out of the backfield, and Spivey. Add them all up. None of them caught as many passes as Hudson did all by himself. That is a lot like the other number 4, Tetairoa McMillan, last year and the year before, certainly reminiscent of that. So if Arizona State, I don't know if they're going to bracket Hudson or whatever they have to do and slow down this ground attack dual threat, whether it's Risano or Mahdi, right? That's kind of the blueprint. But the number one thing they're going to have to do is slow down Chris Hudson. They do have great depth on offense. Now, like I said, only one player had more than one player not named Chris Hudson had more than a reception, and that was Trey Spivey. But that doesn't mean these players are incapable. Chris Hudson was just making things happen. And the other thing that's misleading, he had 9 catches, Michael. He drew a couple of pass interference. I think he drew 2 pass interference plays. Yeah. So he was really responsible for 11 big-time plays and a lot of first downs. Chris Hudson, 133 receiving yards against the Baylor Bears. Arizona State is going to have their hands full with him on Friday. So I tend to think the Cats are going to win. I'll give you a final score while we're at it. I'm going to take the Wildcats 31-24. And do you want to do the same? You want to try to jump in there?
31-24. So the over-under is 48.5.
All right, so I'm over that.
Okay. See, at first, right, I'm like, ooh, I think, ASU, like this was before the Colorado game.
Right.
I thought, ASU, they always find ways to win. But just like the basketball team, David, this team with Arizona, they can win in many different ways, as we saw with Kansas, as we saw with Cincinnati, and as we saw earlier in the season. I think Arizona, I'm going to say they win this game, but I think it would be a little ugly. Okay. I think they get off to a little rough start. I'm going to go 24-20.
All right, so very similar to the Kansas. I think that was the exact final score in the Kansas game a couple of weeks ago on November 8th. Michael and I both seem to be leaning in favor of the Arizona Wildcats, so that is certainly interesting. All right, it is the bottom of the hour here, 5:30. Arizona does play the University of Denver in just 3 hours, and Camp Student Radio will have coverage for that. It will be myself alongside our good buddy Reed.
Oh, here we go. Nice.
And so I don't know which one of your colleagues from the Daily Wildcat will be there. I don't assume it'll be you.
I think Melissa and Ellie will be there.
Okay, so I'll be sure to say hi to them. But it will be my good buddy Reed, our good buddy Reed, and myself on the call at 8:30 local time, Camp Student Radio coverage. All right, let's get to the recap, the pick segment. Michael, not pretty for either one of us once again. Now, unfortunately, you're awful used to. It seems to be like 2-4 is kind of where you are every single week. You're not way off, but consistently 2-4 is not going to cut it.
Well, the Philly game against Dallas,
terrible beat.
I could have been 500.
Yeah, terrible beat. 21-0.
Yeah.
Eagles looks like they're going to run them out of the building.
Yeah.
And what happened? Michael, tell me what happened.
Again, just like the Baylor game, I can't even tell you what happened. Dallas scored 24 unanswered, but they also forced turnovers, right?
Right.
They forced turnovers, and Dallas came through when they needed to. And it seems like, CD had an off game, but that's why they have George Pickens.
Yeah.
He came through, and it looked like Philly had just no match for Pickens. But then also, Philly would get down into the red zone, and I mentioned this to you before the show, David. They were down inside the 5, and Dallas stood them up. So, listen, you got to give props to the Cowboys. They came through when it mattered most, and that's just a great win. And I think, David, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. This could be a season-saving win for them.
Huge game on Thursday.
If they can come through down the line the rest of the season, like you said, big game on Thursday.
Huge. Huge game for both teams. Okay, what's the difference between a big game and a huge game, Michael? I'll tell you. A big game is when the Chiefs play the Colts and the Chiefs absolutely need it to stay alive.
Yeah.
A huge game is when the Chiefs play the Cowboys and both teams need it, right? The Colts, I mean, it would have been nice. They certainly would have felt good about themselves if they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. But did they need the game? No. Did the Chiefs need the game? You better believe it. On Thursday, the Chiefs at 6-5 with the Jaguars at 7-4, with Houston at 6-5, Chargers, Broncos, whoever it is, right?
They're
all right there. The Chiefs at 6-5 need it. The Cowboys 5-1. They absolutely need it. That's what makes it a huge game. That second game there on Thanksgiving. Also a pretty massive game between Detroit and Green Bay before to get things started. Go ahead.
Well, and speaking of Detroit, I was just looking ahead to the following week. Detroit plays Dallas on Thursday night. So
is that right?
Yes.
Wow,
on December 4th. So big game or big couple of weeks for Dallas. Then they have to take care of business against Minnesota.
Which looks promising.
Promising with JJ under center. And then they have a Chargers team who a lot of people just kind of forgot about.
I'm forgetting about them.
With the Broncos kind of taking control of the division, with the Chiefs fighting for that wild card spot. Well, the Chargers, they control their own destiny, right? And then Dallas has 2 final divisional games. But Dallas, these are must-win games. This is what gets you into the playoffs.
Yeah, the Chargers, honestly, they may be the thing that gets the Chiefs in. If they falter, right? Yes, the Chiefs lost to the Chargers, but they're going to play them again in Kansas City. You have to think the Chiefs will be favored upwards of 4.5 points in that one. If the Chargers kind of lose their footing, they're only a game ahead of the Chiefs now. Now, just imagine the Chiefs beat them, right? Then you're talking about maybe the Chiefs bounce L.A., and that's kind of your changing of the guard there. KC's in, L.A.'s out. That seems to me like the most likely way that things go Mahomes' way. Certainly, there's a world where the Chiefs could just run the table. And that wouldn't surprise anybody.
And also the Chargers have a tough schedule coming off the bye. Right. Outside this Vegas.
They're not playing that well.
No, and outside this Vegas game, right, they have this coming Sunday. They have Philly, Kansas City, Dallas, Houston, and Denver.
Right.
And that's at Denver to close the season.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Right. So they need to take care of business before they get down that road. But, yeah, a lot to look forward to this week between Dallas and Kansas City.
Yeah. Now, I have to say this. Another winning week for me in college. I improved to 17-16 on the season. Nothing to sneeze at there. NFL, this is the worst week I ever had, Michael. And not only because I went 0-3 in the NFL, and this brings us to our pick segment recap at 5:35 on a Monday.
They all weren't close.
They weren't close.
No.
I wasn't competitive. I had 2 underdogs in the Saints, and if you're going to take the Saints, you probably should only take them when they're getting points. Unfortunately, I was giving out 2.5. Don't know what I was thinking there. Now I have the Vikings, and here's where I was right. Colin Cowherd. He's like where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. Here's where I was right. Minnesota's defense is very good. Green Bay's offense without Tucker Kraft is struggling. Jordan Love is not the issue there. He's got no help. Their offensive line play is average. Josh Jacobs didn't play, and there's just not that many weapons. Christian Watson is playing well, and there's nobody else on that offense that you would trust aside from Jacobs, who was out. Right. So I was like, geez, I don't see the Packers scoring enough points to cover 6.5. I thought they were going to win, but if you're going to cover 6.5 points, Michael, you got to score. Now, here's what happened. The Minnesota Vikings stink. They had 3 turnovers, including a muff punt that gave the Packers 7 points on a silver platter. J.J. McCarthy didn't even throw for 100 yards in the air. And there you go. 23-6 is your final. Now, even if you negate the muffed punt, that easily could have been a 16-9, 16-10 type of game, and I would have covered. But no, at 23-6, I'm out. That was terrible. New Orleans, like I said, not sure. Now, again, bad luck here, Michael. I wasn't competitive. I'm trying to make it sound better than it was. The Saints are losing 16-7. They're going in. It must be something about teams that I like or pick that they fumble at the 1-yard line. Brees Hall had a big fumble at the 1-yard line, and then New Orleans had a fumble at the 1. They punched that one in at 16-14. I'm right in this thing. Instead, they fumble. The Falcons going to win 24-10. Why anybody would even watch that game, pick that game, recognize that it's being played, go to the stadium.
Outside of a great late window.
Oh,
it was a great late window.
24-10 Falcons. And then my last pick, my goodness, Tampa Bay. Now, I thought this was really a good pick. I liked it quite a bit.
And you even said the LA hype needs to calm down.
I said, everybody really thinks this is the best team in the league? Yes, they are. I hate to break it to me. Now, Baker Mayfield going down with an injury, I do have a little bit of an excuse there, but let's be honest.
They were done before that.
They weren't covering.
They were done before that.
34-7, your final there. The LA Rams, let's talk about it, Michael. They win 34-7 against Tampa. Matthew Stafford, it seems like, here's my analogy on Stafford. Remember when Rodgers, you had the whole COVID thing going on, new coach, whatever. Now, McVay's been there, but he kind of reinvented his career with those 2 late MVPs. He loses to Tom Brady in the NFC Championship game, but he had that late push there in Green Bay where he was playing really well. That kind of seems to be where Matthew Stafford is right now. And Devontae Adams kind of the common denominator there, obviously with Rodgers in Green Bay, and now he's with Stafford in L.A. The Rams got a 1-2 punch out of the receiver room with Adams and Nakua. Stafford playing at an MVP level defensively. The Rams doing some really, really good things. So they look like a real problem. Is it safe to say the L.A. Rams are the best team in the NFL?
I mean, I think so, and I think you can go based off of what we saw last night and also what we've seen this year. And it's not a knock to a team like Seattle, not a knock to a team like Philly. It's just the Rams. They looked so comfortable last night, David. It was just unbelievable. I'm sitting there watching this game, and I'm FaceTiming my family, and we're catching up, and then I'm like, Dad, I'm not sure if you're watching the Sunday night game, but my God, the Rams just look so comfortable. It just looks so easy. They're playing like a video game. They use Nakua 3 times in a row on one of their drives, and I believe in the first or second quarter.
Right.
They get down to the 1, and then, oh, wait, that's right. We have Devontae Adams. Let's throw it up to him. Oh, wait, but you also have a great running back in Kyron Williams. Oh, and by the way, Tampa, I know you haven't been healthy all season. Good luck with our defense, by the way. Our defense has just been a headache all season. Oh, and by the way, our greatest defensive player, you could argue in franchise history, is in the house tonight. So there's some added.
I still forget sometimes that he's retired. He's so young.
Oh my God, he looks. I think he can go out there and play right now.
It looks that way. It certainly looks that way.
Yeah, no, the Rams just look so dominant, and I'm just so like confused by it because it's like Stafford is how old and he's doing what?
Well, Tom Brady at 37. I think he's 37, right?
I thought he was 36,
all right,
but
he's in his mid to upper 30s. Stafford and we saw Tom Brady have tremendous success at that age. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers, like I said, rattled off 2 MVPs, I think at the exact same point in his career at the exact same age. So maybe that's kind of the last push where you still have a little bit left in the tank. You obviously have the mind, the experience, the reps to where it's an advantage, right? It seems like all these quarterbacks get smarter and smarter as the years go on. So he's got that veteran presence, but he's still got enough in the tank. He's playing at a really high level. How far ahead of Seattle are the Rams? That's a question we won't answer here, but certainly something to keep an eye on. Darnold, the one thing that I maybe put too much stock in, he had 4 turnovers in the game. They lost by only 2 points. Seattle might be the closest challenger, definitely the closest challenger in the NFC West. We'll get a look at San Francisco in about 30 minutes against Carolina. By the way, the San Francisco-Carolina game got so much bigger for the Panthers the minute Baker Mayfield went down with a shoulder injury because you got the Bucs sitting at 6-5. Their quarterback, you'd have to think, is not going to play this week. I think they play your Cardinals.
Yes, they do.
So that could be a putrid game if we're being honest. If that's a backup versus backup, the old Jacoby Brissett, Teddy Bridgewater vehicle, a big game for Tampa, but not likely to be aesthetically pleasing. And then you've got Carolina, also 6-5 right now.
Right.
If they win, I think they have a bye week coming up soon. They could be chilling on the bye week, leading the NFC South. And
which is unbelievable.
That's shocking.
Yeah, even coming into it, right? Even at the start of the year, we were like, what's with Carolina? Like, they're probably the most confusing team out there. And before this game, we were like, oh, they're 6-5 or 5-5, but they just lost to the Saints. I don't get it. Like, what is this team? And then they go on and they win a thriller against Atlanta.
Yeah.
Now they have a huge game tonight. Same with San Francisco. This is a huge game, and I think it should get a lot more headlines into it.
Carolina swept the Falcons, so that's
going
to do them a big favor.
Yes, but also I think Carolina, this is a really important stretch for them. They have tonight.
Don't they have Tampa twice?
They have the Rams. Then they play the Saints, Tampa, Seattle, Tampa.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you have to imagine those 2 games against Tampa at the end are going to be pretty decisive.
Yes.
Now, you would think Mayfield will definitely be back by then. I don't believe he's going to go on IR.
No.
So that makes me think he's probably week to week. Was probably the
I
want
to say that because they said they got a good report on his MRI.
That's good. And he's a really fun player. There's a couple, even Jameis Winston and Mayfield is better than Winston. But Mayfield and Winston are both these kinds of guys. When they're playing every week, it's more fun. Right? They're explosive, unpredictable players. And Winston, my goodness. The Lions, they play the first game. That's a huge game. Don't look now. The Chicago Bears lead the NFC North. Another shocker. If you're going to tell me the Panthers, the Bears, the Colts, the Patriots, I mean, these are your division leaders right now. It's pretty surprising, but nonetheless, that's where we are. Chicago picks up the win against Pittsburgh. We'll get to that one in a moment, but I want to start with, because I mentioned Jameis Winston, the Giants, man, they are just like Arkansas. Which we talked about pre-show, right? 2-9, they just can't get it done. Highly competitive. Let another one slip through their fingers. controversial decision by Kafka, but we can spend all the time in the world talking about the Giants and how they keep losing close games. I want to talk about the Lions. Defensively, it seems like they're really struggling this season, and Jared Goff, I don't want to say that he's been figured out. I mean, they scored 34 points, but it seems like Gibbs is the straw
He's the
that
main
makes,
focal point, and
he's
they've
the
kind of
straw that-
figured out Amon-Ra and Goff.
He's the straw that stirs the drink. And when Goff is pressured, it's not pretty. And the Giants were in his face a little bit. The Eagles had great pass rush on Jared Goff. So that's 2 games in a row, really, where Detroit has been feeling the heat. So let's analyze the NFC North. Green Bay without Tucker Kraft, like I said, their offense struggling a little bit. Jared Goff doesn't seem to be the player he was with Ben Johnson and with the protection in front. Then you've got the Bears. All they do, they're the antithesis of the Giants, and it's fitting that the Giants blew a 10-point lead against Chicago because all Chicago does is win close games, and all the Giants do is lose close games. Chicago's 8-3. Can they keep it up?
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
They got a really tough schedule. They have Philly this week. They
Big
have
game.
Green Bay, both road games, by the way.
Yep.
They have Green Bay. Then they have the Browns, but the Browns are no slouch.
No.
They have
and
an
Shedeur
excellent
Sanders.
They have Shedeur Sanders. They're riding hot. Credits the Raiders, but their defense is no joke. Their defense has always been solid all year long. So, and it gave the Ravens problems, right? And then they have Green Bay again. Then they have San Francisco, and then they close out with Detroit.
Yeah.
Now the thing is,
Lots of division. Here's the one thing about the NFC North: they all play divisional games to close. All of the 4 teams have been not playing divisional games.
Right.
So you've got Detroit, Chicago, and Green Bay. They're all going to be playing each other in December.
absolutely. So it's going to be a really tough stretch to close. However, with this Bears team, right, like you said, it's flipped. They usually lose these type of games, and now they're winning them.
Yep.
It's a completely different team now.
And the Bears, who they resemble in that division is the Vikings. And the Vikings with Sam Darnold last year, they were well coached. Their quarterback was giving them enough. They were playing pretty good defense, turning the ball over, winning close games. That's what the Vikings did. They got it all the way to 13-4. And that's kind of where Chicago is. So I'm going to ask you a really tough question, Michael, but I'll help you. I'll jump in and give my opinion as well. Now, my opinion sometimes isn't seen as helpful. Sometimes it's more antagonistic. But nonetheless, here's the situation. Chicago 8-3, Green Bay 7-3-1, Detroit 7-4. You can only pick one who's going to win the division.
This is tough. I'm gonna say. I'm trying to see here. I think schedule plays a factor, and I don't think Detroit can do it. I think it's really either between Chicago and Green Bay, and I think it's actually gonna come down to a game between those two.
The Bears and the Packers have 2 matchups with each other left to go. The Packers play the Lions on Thanksgiving. Here's my pick. Detroit.
You like Detroit?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Now, I just told you why I don't, but there's something to be said, Michael, for what they've done the last 2 years, right? They've been the standard in the NFC North. I think they're going to take care of business on Thanksgiving against the Packers. They're going to become the talk of the town here. And then they blew out the Bears in Detroit against Chicago earlier this year. They're going to go to the Bears Stadium, Soldier Field. That's going to be a tough one, but they have my trust right now. More so, the Packers, I can't buy what I'm seeing on the offensive side of the ball. I just don't think there's enough help there for Jordan Love. The Packers' defense is really good.
Right.
It's really, really good. And Chicago, I do think it's still smoke and mirrors to an extent.
Okay.
I think it'll catch up with them at some point. But Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson does seem to be a formidable marriage there.
Yeah.
So that is interesting. I noticed you got really quiet when I did the picks recap. Did you not want to kind of touch on what you had? A bad beat there, kind of.
Bad beat with
Seattle?
Philly.
And Philly. Yeah.
I didn't get a chance with the Seattle game, but I think I saw a back door there.
Somewhat, but you got it at 13.5. They were up by 13. So
Okay.
that wasn't likely to go the other way there.
I thought they were at 14. I'm like, ooh.
Scored a lot of points. Sam Darnold, 30 points scored
Yeah.
against that bad Titans defense, but maybe they kicked a few too many field goals for you. 3 field goals, 3 touchdowns to cover that big number. Cam Ward's starting to play a little bit better.
Yeah, he looks a lot better. Well, I was going to say, David, on Friday's show, I had it typed out. I had Minnesota as my 4th secondary, like as my backup.
Oh, if I knew that, I wouldn't have picked him.
No, I was waiting. I'm like, do I do it? Do I do it? And then I'm like, do I take out the Bears?
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm like, it's the Bears cycle. Oh, my God, we're so good. We lost.
Yeah,
Here we
it
go
is.
again.
And they tried. I mean, they again, Williams got strip sacked in the end zone. The defense did enough, but they did give up 28 points. but they're moving the football. They can
They
really,
can absolutely.
the Bears do not resemble the Bears of the past because they
No.
go up and down the field, which is not something Chicago is used to.
Yeah, no. But to answer your question about winning the North, I'm gonna take the Packers, and it's almost like I'm gonna take it like how I picked the Broncos to come out of the AFC.
Yeah.
I think that defense is really solid, and I think that offense can kind of get it going in the last couple of weeks. They're getting their guys back.
Right.
I know it's a bunch of, you could say like B-, C+ receivers.
Yes.
But that's the Packers. That's who they are. And I think LaFleur, once they finally get everyone back, I think they can come through to fruition because that defense is a problem.
The defense is an issue. And, again, you don't want to put too much stock into a great performance against Minnesota because I think offensively
I
really
look past that. Anything with
before,
J.J. McCarthy, I
before,
just look past it.
Jameis Winston was moving the football against the Green Bay Packers. He scored 20 points and nearly tied the game there with a late game drive. So the Packers, to me, again, I also think about when they gave up a 40 spot against the Cowboys in that 40-40 tie. It just doesn't quite pass the smell test. The Lions have been there, done that, so that's my pick. Look, here's why it's a good conversation is you can pick any of the three, and you really are standing on solid ground. I think they all it's like a 33% chance for all three teams, so it's really, really compelling. And what's going to make it more interesting, Michael, is they play each other a ton to wrap up the season. Good game tonight between Carolina and the San Francisco 49ers. Shout out to our buddy Hazy Richardson. He's red hot. Hazy, we got to be honest about this. And he's going to join us next Monday, a week from today. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't met him in person, but we've exchanged messages a few times. He's a Giants fan, so lots of tough losses for him. He got off to a terrible start. I'm just going to be blunt.
No, he did.
Ice cold.
Yeah.
I don't think he was happy about it. But whatever
I think he was in last.
Whatever he's up to recently, he's got it figured out, Michael. His NFL record is now 17-12. He's got the Panthers tonight. So that tells you there might be something there because he knows what he's doing.
He has two underdogs in the NFL this week.
Yeah, well,
Indy and Carolina.
I took two underdogs, and that didn't work out too well. Indy was the right pick. At no point did that look bad. They were up the whole game. They had 11-point lead in the fourth quarter, even in overtime. They weren't. They got 3 and a hook. So
you're good.
He was fine, and he deserved the cover there. Kansas City was not the pick. I don't think anybody took the Chiefs, or I don't see too many people that were back in KC. Indy was a good pick for Hazy. He's got the Panthers tonight. He's 15-15 in college. I think he's in the top 3 now because DC 0-3 in the NFL. How about that? Shockwaves through the league. He had big favorites.
Yeah,
I told him I didn't like. Remember, I said on the show, I said I didn't like the Ravens pick. Now I don't.
But you like the Detroit pick.
I did.
Yeah.
I thought the Detroit game was going to be 51-24. I mean, I just thought the Lions were going to go up and down the field, and they did. It just took too late. They couldn't score in the first quarter, and then they got their act together defensively. The Lions, they kind of figure it out. Jameis Winston has been dynamic. I didn't mind the Dallas pick, but Detroit pick. I told him, I said, hey, I think the Jets. I don't bet on the Jets, or I don't pick them. I said, I think they're going to cover that. They've been really competitive. You're telling me the Ravens are better than New England, who beat the Jets by 13. The Ravens, I'm not buying it. And Damon has been he's been consistent. He's been taking the Ravens since Lamar's come back. It's mostly gone well for him. But, Michael, they almost lost to Cleveland. They played an ugly game at home against the Jets. They played a close game against the Vikings, who looked terrible. I mean, that division's a mess. The
Absolutely.
AFC North, if Joe Flacco and that defense could have won a couple more close games, Burrow was going to play on Thursday, the Bengals could have been right in it. The bottom line is the AFC is anybody's game, right? We talked about it last week. The AFC could belong to 6 or 7 different teams. I don't think it's going to be Baltimore or Pittsburgh, though. I have very little regard for them. I give Houston, shout out Ethan Gleich, I give Houston a better chance than I do Baltimore or Pittsburgh. Same goes for the Colts, and the same goes maybe even for the Jaguars. I don't think the Ravens or the Steelers have what it takes.
I think with Houston, they got to figure out their offense, right? And I know I'm contradicting myself picking a lot of these defensive teams.
Yeah, you are.
But, you know, I don't know. When I just watch Houston, I'm like, you got to pass the eye test for me. And I'm a big Stroud guy. He just doesn't look the same. And then I can't even, like.
Massive game against the Colts this week.
And they just got to control their own destiny. They can't get too far ahead of themselves, but their defense just looks absolutely outstanding. But I want to get back to Damon here. His college picks, his bread and butter of UConn, that didn't go too well.
He got lazy. He's getting a little lazy.
Yeah, I liked his Illinois picks. They just looked flat against Wisconsin. They had no shot in that entire game, and they looked terrible. And then Duke, oh my God, you want to talk about a sweat.
That was the only pick he got right all week, and he did not deserve it.
And he probably, burned a couple hundred calories watching that game.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness. I mean, we talk about, especially in the NFL, right, divisional matchups. It's a rivalry game.
Yes.
Right? It can go anyone's way. Well, he picks Duke, and I love the confidence. But, it's a rivalry game against I understand it's a struggling UNC team, but whew.
UNC has got their act together, though, recently, and I'm not a big Belichick fan, as you would imagine, but they've been much more competitive than what we saw out of the gate, and they probably were in a position to win against Duke.
Well, here's the thing with UNC, right? So they're 5-6, but I want to say they have I forgot what the stat was called. They have the highest stat. I forgot what it's called. Besides the point, there's not enough teams this year where all 6 win. There's not enough teams to get 6 wins for bowl eligibility.
Right.
So UNC is still bowl eligible, and they won't even get to 6 wins.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. But at least, like you said, they're going to be in a bowl game, but I don't think it's going to be one of the higher quality ones. I don't think anybody expected a Bill Belichick team to be pleading for bowl eligibility with 5 wins. But that could be where they are. I imagine they're going to play NC State next week. That's usually the trend there. With the rivalry games, we know we've got Ole Miss against Mississippi State, Arizona against Arizona State. I would imagine North Carolina is going to play North Carolina State, but I could be wrong.
Yes,
about
correct.
That one. Okay.
That's correct.
All right, so that'll be either in Chapel Hill or Raleigh, and that should be
Raleigh.
a pretty close game. UNC's probably getting a few points there, but not too many.
NC State is favored as of right now, 7.5.
Okay, so 7. So that's about where the Duke line was, and UNC very nearly took out Duke. So Damon goes 1-5, by far his worst week so far. He falls to 30-24, and like I said, there could be a changing of the guard.
And I think Will just took over first place now.
Well, Will is 6 above. Damon is 6 above. Will is 33-27, so they're basically tied. And if Hazy strikes with Carolina, he'll be 33-27. So it's really gotten interesting.
He's on a heater.
Now, I guess I should be rooting for Damon because otherwise it's your DW guys, the Daily Wildcat people, that are leading the way. Damon's got that camp logo up there, the lone camper that's actually doing well. Certainly Ethan, myself, and Reed are not cutting it. Even our buddy Reed, who we're going to hear from in the Denver broadcast, he's hovering around 500. He's with me just a few games below. But my NFL 0-3, 13-20 in the National Football League. I got to just give up. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and you were on fire last year.
Oh my God.
I think that's got to be historic.
Yeah.
I think I put that in the rafters.
But unfortunately, we didn't document it. I wish it was written down. It's out in the abyss. We might have to go back and hear some of the old recordings.
Yeah.
Because I did have the record. We were announcing it every week, and I'm like, okay, I'm 20-4 now, or whatever it was. And then in college, I couldn't, the famous, I couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat. But at least in the NFL, I had my act together. All right, Michael, let's do this. We touched on some of the divisions that I think are really interesting. Let's look ahead. So there's some huge games. We're not going to make our picks because we're already running out of time. The hour goes by so fast. Now, we did have our friend Comsey bleed into his pretty heavy. I mean, let's be honest, like 5:08, I think, when we got on the air today. But we love Comsey, and we appreciate his coverage for the Baylor game. A lot of fun there. All right, so let's just go really quick. We're just going to go one word. You can say lean. So think of this like elections, right? They have states that are toss-ups, and like sometimes they lean red, lean blue. Okay. So you can say like 50-50, lean or solid. Solid would be like Alabama red, right? Okay. Or like California blue. Yeah. And then lean would be something like maybe Wisconsin or Ohio.
Yeah.
And then Pennsylvania would be like, I don't know. Okay.
Are we looking at spread?
No. Just
the game.
Just the game.
Gotcha.
No, don't even look. I'll read the line so people know what's going on, but you just think about the game, okay? I'm not going to do every single one. So Green Bay and Detroit.
Ooh,
it's in Ford Field. The Lions are favored by 2.5.
I'm going to say, did the Lions blow out the Packers last time?
The Packers blew out the Lions week 1.
Time. I'm going to go lean Detroit.
Okay, I agree with you.
I don't think
All right, huge game. Chiefs are favored by a field goal in Dallas.
I'm going to go lean Kansas City.
Okay.
They need this more. They're going to get this.
Do you think Joe Burrow making his return presents any kind of challenge for the Ravens?
No.
I do.
No, I don't think so.
I think that's going to be
what's with Higgins? What's with Higgins?
Don't care.
Okay.
I think the Ravens stink. That's where I am. The Ravens are 3, or excuse me, the Bengals
I like the
3-0.
Bengals to cover because
7 points.
Baltimore can't cover to save their lives.
Another game that's 7 points. Chicago and Philly in Philly.
Ooh. I'm gonna go solid Philly.
You really think so?
I'm gonna go solid Philly.
Now,
I think the Bears' magic runs out this game, but I don't think the Bears. I think this might be an outlier.
Both of these teams are 8-3. They have the same record. Chicago.
I'm gonna go
Philly.
Eagles solid there.
That's
I think
on
they're
Black
pissed
Friday,
off.
3:00 Eastern, out on the Atlantic. The Philadelphia Eagles playing host to the Chicago Bears. If you're a believer in the Bears, look, the Eagles just lost to Dallas, right? The Bears knocked the crap out of the Cowboys, so at least that common opponent favors Chicago. If it's a close game, we know the Bears have been really good in close games. We're really going to find out, Michael. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, this offense has been doing really well. Maybe the best defense I've seen Philly this year on the road in their building. That's going to be a good test. The one thing I couldn't believe all week, you can make sense of everything. The one thing I couldn't make sense of, and I know the Dallas offense is good, Philly's defense has been shutting down everybody. They shut down Green Bay, Detroit, doesn't matter. The Cowboys lit them up. They had almost 500 yards of offense. I mean, you couldn't saw that coming.
It's Dallas's offense is explosive.
All right, we'll keep it moving. Now we're on to Sunday. This is a game, frankly, that I am intrigued by. I hate to say it. It doesn't, if you were walking down the beach, right, and you're looking at people, you say, okay, whatever. This person wouldn't really jump out, but San Francisco, Cleveland, the Browns are getting 6 points. Shedeur Sanders, 1-0 as a starter. San Francisco 49ers, a little bit banged up. It's going to be a short week. They got to travel across the country. 10 a.m. local time, body clock. See what I'm getting at here?
Yeah, no.
You've got a banged up offense, Brock Purdy against a great Cleveland defense. Am I overselling this one? Where are you on this?
I think a little bit because I think Shedeur, he proved me wrong. However, it is the Raiders. It is the Raiders, so I'm going to go solid with San Francisco.
I disagree with you.
I'm going to go solid with San Francisco. However, I do think it'll be a sweat, but I still think
San Francisco Cleveland is going to be in that game. That's where I am on that. Now we'll certainly see. Jacksonville's got a bit of a test in Tennessee, divisional game on the road. They're favored by 6.5. I mean, they just got to take care of business. If they win that game, they'll be 8-4. You think they're going to have any trouble there?
I think with Jacksonville, they're so confusing to me. It's like they don't want to win.
Yeah.
Every game they play, they just like we don't feel like winning.
They made it
especially
look
with Lawrence. He's like, hey, I don't want the ball anymore.
Their defense just doesn't close, right? I mean, they just make it too interesting. They did slam the door late against Arizona, but it took way too long for that to happen. Big time game, Houston and Indianapolis. The Colts are favored by 4 and a hook. It's too late. It's too late now. I was begging for it last week.
I
was shouting from the rooftops.
This game.
I should be in charge. I really think so. The NFL, they should hire me. Nonetheless, Houston and Tennessee is going to be buried at the 1:00 Eastern window. Meanwhile, Washington is going to host Denver Sunday Night Football. Are we kidding? Houston and Indy should be on Sunday Night Football, not Denver and Washington. Nonetheless, Michael, two good defenses here, Texans and Colts. Stroud against Daniel Jones. What do you think?
The Texans need this game, but can they go on the road and win? That's the big question. I'm going to lean towards Indy.
Yep.
But that's not disrespect to Houston. They just got to – I hope I'm wrong, by the way.
I'm going to disrespect somebody. Can I say something?
Please, go ahead.
And this is going to be one of my picks this week.
I'm all ears.
What is the strength of the Houston Texans? It's a very easy question.
The D-line.
The defensive line. What is the strength of the Indianapolis Colts? Their offensive line. I think the Texans' one real strength is going to be neutralized. I think the Colts are going to handle the Texans.
Ooh, so you're solid.
Final score, Indy 23, Houston 9.
Wow.
Yep. I think the Colts are going to blow them out. At home, their offensive line is going to handle that D-line. I'm going to skip over some of these nondescript games.
The Jets, look at that. The Jets are getting two.
I think the Jets are probably going to win that game, to be honest.
Here we go.
But I went against the Falcons last
2.5. 2.5. That's their. Is that not their lowest margin of spread this year?
They were favored, man. They were favored against Cleveland. I don't know if it stayed. At one time, they were favored against the Browns, and they did win. But then it moved around because they traded Sauce and Quinnen, and they thought, well, these two guys aren't going to play, and they won the game. Yeah. But nonetheless,
they'll throw Chris Myers on that game.
Bro,
don't you?
You better believe that Chris Myers, and they probably, and hopefully, like last time, the audio won't be working because the last time it sounded like he was calling the game from Mars. I'm going to skip over some of those nondescript games. Sneaky good game, Rams-Panthers. Could the Rams get caught in the old 10 a.m. trap against possibly the NFC South leading Carolina Panthers?
They could, but I don't think they
The
will.
Rams are favored by a whopping 10 points. That's massive. Now,
That's
how many
a
times
big line.
has a 6-5 team, and they could be 7-5, been getting 10 points at home?
Yeah.
That is remarkable.
That's
It's a
how
huge
good the
number.
Rams are, and I think that's how much Vegas loves LA.
I think it's too many, but we'll see. The Vikings are likely to. I mean, how many turnovers is J.J. McCarthy going to have in Seattle against that defense?
Well,
5?
I don't know about turnovers. I think about incompletions, missed throws, and not looking towards Justin Jefferson.
Yep. Sneaky good game. Buffalo against Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have to think Rodgers probably going to play.
He has to play this.
He was really close to playing against Chicago, 50-50, so you think another 7 days he'll be good to go.
Absolutely.
Again, now two defenses that usually like their brand, right, are that the Bills and the Steelers can play good defense.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure that's true for either one of these teams. Pittsburgh just gave up 31 against Chicago. Listen to this, Michael. With the Steelers giving up 31 points against the Bears, Pittsburgh has now allowed 30-plus in 5 games this year. Yeah, now that's going to make your eyebrows move because Mike Tomlin-led defense, you would think it's a respectable unit. They're not. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills, really not that much better. You got to remember they gave up 40 points against the Ravens to start, and then they gave up 30 points a couple of weeks ago against the Dolphins. They gave up 32 against Tampa. So this is a defense that 3 times they've given up 30-plus. So both of these defenses, I think, a little bit overrated. Do we have a shootout in Pittsburgh?
We could, and I think if it goes to a shootout, I like Buffalo. And outside of that, Buffalo needs this game. They need to put their foot down. They need to say,
they're falling
hey,
way behind with New England.
Absolutely they are. And they need to put their foot down and say, hey, no, we are the Buffalo Bills to have won the division the last couple of years. This is who we are. Right. And they're not only sending a message to the league, they're sending a message to everyone in their own locker room saying, this is who we are. We're not a mid-team now that the Patriots are back.
No, I think you make a reasonable point. So I think the Bills are going to take care of business in that one. And then we all know the Giants probably going to get their hearts ripped out against New England on Monday Night Football. Last one here for us, and then we'll wrap it up. Giants are getting only 7.5. Here's an interesting thing, Michael. Last week the Giants were getting 12.5 against Detroit. They're playing on the road against the Patriots. They're getting 7.5. So Vegas is kind of telling you, hey, the Patriots are 5 points worse than the Lions. I'm not sure I buy that.
I don't buy that either. I think the Patriots are actually better than Detroit.
Yeah, I think so too. But here's the thing. Are the Giants going to continue to play this game where they're winning, they're in control?
Well,
and
I think Dart might come back for this game.
That would be very interesting. Now, I have to tell you, you're like, oh, I see what you're going to want to flex. You want to get rid of the Giants-Patriots? No way, man. No, I want to watch that. I know the Giants are 2-9, but they're like the Arkansas Razorbacks, like we said. They're very entertaining. They're probably going to be leading at one point. It's going to be a really offensive game there. Difference between offensive and offensive. Monday Night Football is going to be offensive. Sunday Night Football is going to be offensive.
And Denver's only getting 6.5. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on
That's
there.
unbelievable.
Well, sometimes it's tough to unpack. Certainly, I've done a really poor job unpacking it at 13-20. Michael and I are not going to hear our lovely voices on Friday. We're going to be home enjoying the holidays. I assume you're going up to Phoenix or Scottsdale area.
I'll be at the Territorial Cup Friday.
Oh, good for you. Yeah. So that we'll have to check in with you and see how that goes. And we both seem to think the Wildcats are going to get it done. I'll be watching at 9 p.m. local time on the East Coast, so I'll be up after midnight keeping tabs on the Arizona Wildcats. We will be back next Monday, a week from today, 5 o'clock on Camp Student Radio with special guest and possibly student media leader by next week, Hazy Richardson, New York Giant fan. It's going to be game day for the Giants. I didn't even plan that. That's just working out. So we're going to have Giants expert pick segment leading Hazy Richardson joining the program next Monday. You're going to want to hear it. The Rundown. Thank you so much for listening on 1570 AM Camp Student Radio and campstudentradio.com.